You are live. Okay, we are live now. Welcome, Hans Vanwijn, to another episode of the TIB Playground podcast. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing fine. Trying to work out as much as possible, but of course, with the lockdown, we're not able to practice
Mhm.
in the gym. So basically, just trying to stay in shape, working out a little bit, but it's not easy to do a lot of basketball right now. I'm trying to keep busy with the kids practice. So each week
Yeah,
I do like a kids practice on Zoom for like 70, 80 kids. Also for me, it's nice to
to
stick to
have some
basketball a
connection.
little bit. Yeah, exactly. So for the rest, not a lot of stuff going on. Trying to each night I play some PlayStation.
Yeah.
Try to do a lot of different stuff, but it's not a there's not a lot of possibilities these days.
So, any like thought about when this will be going better? Any communication already, like from the clubs that you could get into practices again, or?
Uh, no, I think we got a message last week from the club that they had a board meeting, but they also said that they had no idea when the gym will open up again. So I think they hope that we can start practicing by two or by three guys in May maybe.
Yeah.
But there's no guarantees. Maybe in the next 2 weeks they will know a lot more. But for the moment there's nothing sure.
Well, this makes that we have time for stuff like this to have an interview with you.
Yeah, of
And
course.
I want to go back with you back in time, back to the point you were coming for the first time into uh, the highest level of basketball in Belgium. And it was
Mhm.
in 2013, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You came from Kuva
I
Houthalen.
was still playing second division, yeah, and
Yeah.
also with Leuven first division. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um,
So what was your experience when doing that transition to the first level?
I mean, it was pretty high level actually in Leuven already. We had a solid team if you think about it. So I came from second division. I had a pretty good year with Brian Lynch in second division with Houtala. We had a couple Americans on the team, so it was easy to change or to adapt for me to Leuven. But if you look back at it, we had a great team when I was playing there. We had Desiron, Tumba, De Rover, Lassisi,
You had a good
Troffontaine.
team. Yeah.
So Van Kanegem, Bakko, we had all the young guys basically. Of course, some of them were still pretty young, so they were not playing a lot. But we had a solid team, and it was actually pretty easy for me to adapt because I already knew a lot of guys there. Um, but it was the biggest difference was that that's my first year as a pro, so we were practicing in the morning.
Hmm.
Uh, Shooting all the workouts, and then in the afternoon it was like 5-on-5 stuff, 4-on-4, like playing. But I actually learned a lot that year because it was completely different than second division. Of course, I still played in second division,
Hmm.
but I was always practicing and sometimes playing with Leuven also. So I didn't get a lot of minutes, but I definitely learned a lot that year for sure. Yeah.
And was it something that you always aspired to do as a kid to go to the highest level in Belgium or even beyond that?
Uh, yeah, I think it's everybody's dream to make it like
Yeah.
the first division or even to the NBA. But for me, I remember when I was playing when I was like 10, 12 years old, I was playing in Belgian and their first team was third division.
Hmm.
And at that moment, it would have been great if like that was my goal to make it to third division basically because I was not that easy. A lot of the guys that I played with already quit after a couple of years. So
Oh, yeah.
for me at that moment, I really looked up to those guys who were playing like at the top in third division.
Hmm.
So if I made that team, it would have been already great for me. So I never expected to play first division. That was unexpected for sure.
And how did you get there? What made you different than the others that made you a player that could reach that level?
I think of course you need some talent, but like I said, I wasn't really that special or I wasn't that good when I was like 12, 13 years old. We were doing was called IPC, where we played in
Mm.
between the different. Antwerp was playing Limburg. It was like under 14, and like a lot of those guys were way better than me. And I was like, damn, this is a pretty high level. They were playing already against older guys and stuff, so they were used to it, and I was not because I came from like a small team. And then eventually I got the chance because a lot of coaches saw some talent in me, a lot of potential. So I got the chance to go to the topsportschool,
Mm.
got selected to some national teams, and I always kept going from there because at the start, even in topsportschool, it was really hard for me to adapt because a lot of guys were way more physical. They were just better in basketball when I was like 14, 13, 14, 15 maybe. I was really, they were a lot better than me. And then everything started to change when I was like 16, 17. I grew like a couple of inches. I became a lot stronger. I also became better at basketball. And all of a sudden it went really quick. And by the time I was 16, 17, I was already practicing in second division. So
Oh.
there I learned a lot. And from there on, it went pretty quick to becoming a pro and playing for Leuven.
And if you look back at the time that you saw all these other guys being better than you and stronger and so on, do you say now, or do you think like, see, told you so, or something like, where are they now?
Yeah, I think actually a lot of them don't even play basketball anymore, or at the really high low level. Some of them, of course, still also play in first division, like
Yeah,
Sander Buchanegem, who I was with in
yeah.
the school, and some other guys. But most of those guys, they're working 9 to 5 jobs now, or they don't even play basketball anymore at all.
Hmm.
But for me, it was more like I got a lot of motivation out of getting beat like every day, 14, 15 years old, one-on-ones. I hated it in practice in school because I would get killed most of the time because they were just faster or stronger than me.
Hmm.
And they were basically better than me. So I got a lot of motivation out of that. And I think also that's why I became better every year because I grew and it was
Yeah.
like
It
at the
was
right, I was there at the right time,
yeah.
16, 17.
It
And,
was really
and
the adversity and the beating that you got that really made you become better.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I don't think that's without any doubt. Yeah.
and once you got into the first division with Leuven, after I don't know 1 or 2 years, you made the next step to Limburg, and you met again with Coach Lynch.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was really important for me because I think I had a 2 year deal in Leuven, and after the first year, they started Limburg United, the team that was a new team in Limburg because there was no team. It
Hmm.
was not far from my hometown and everything. I always played in Limburg, so of course I knew Brian really well. He was an assistant in Antwerp the year before, but then he became head coach in Limburg. So he called me directly and some other people who were working for the club, and it was a pretty easy choice for me to go back to Limburg, a new team, new start, and I knew that I was going to get a lot of chances from Brian because he
Hmm.
really believed in me from when I was like 16, 17 years old because he saw himself a little bit in me as a
Yeah,
player. He recognized a lot of stuff, so I knew he was going to give me a lot of chances, and he did. I remember the first game in Limburg, so the first home game of Limburg United, he put me in the starting five when I feel like there was like maybe better players than me, but he gave me the
hmm,
chance to prove myself. And from there on, especially his second year in Limburg, I learned a lot, and I got a lot of. I was starting almost every game, and I got a lot of playing time and a lot of confidence also.
so his way of playing, his style of play really suits you as a player.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Without playing without ball, and
Yeah,
everybody was sharing the ball, and I
fast
like.
up tempo.
Yeah, exactly. And I like to pass the ball, and we always had great passers on the team, really balanced team, and we played so fast that it was really hard for other teams to defend, and I loved that game. So that's why he always liked him as a coach.
You were chosen as youngster of the year in 2015, 2016. Was that a great accomplishment for you? Like, did you expect that? Was that one
Uh,
of your goals?
yeah, I think of course it's one of your goals when you play in first division, you want to win something like that. But I think before the season started, I wasn't really thinking about that. But then during the season, I knew that there was not a lot of guys of my age. Oh, I think I was like 19, 20 years old max at the time, and we were playing really well. We beat Austin a couple of times at home, and I was playing like 20, 25 minutes, and I was in the starting lineup with a lot of other good players who play in Germany right now and in other leagues. So maybe I expected it a little bit at the end, but then I mean it was an incredible season because we beat Antwerp, I think, in the quarterfinals that year in the playoffs, and then we even forced Austin to a game five or a game four. I will never forget. We were down one, and like it was a full house in Limburg, Alberg. It was full, and I drove and I passed to somebody, and he scored. I think to Jason Love, and he scored the game-winning layup. And I think the atmosphere back then in Limburg was like it was incredible. Like a second-year team, we were forcing Ostend, who was champion for like 5 years in a row, and we forced them to a game five where they never could beat us in Limburg. So it was an incredible season, also for the club, I think.
Yeah, it was amazing. It's always amazing that one of the clubs in first division can really be a challenger for Ostend, of course.
Yeah,
Eh?
yeah.
The decision that you made to go to Antwerp, um, was that like for you the obvious next step as well? Or was it because you didn't see really a future anymore in Limburg?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, I had a 3-year deal in Limburg, and it was my third year, and the team wasn't really doing well. And then after 2 months, I broke my ankle, so I
Mm.
was out for like I think basically 4 or 5 months. I started playing again in February. We did make it to the cup final, so that was still a nice accomplishment also for the club. But I never really got to be the same player as in the second year, and people expected a lot more. But I felt I could do a lot better. And at the end of the year, I got an option to go to I think Charleroi, Ostend, or Antwerp. So basically all the good teams in Belgium.
Yeah.
So I was 21 at the time, so it was time for me to make the next step, maybe play in a European competition or play for a better team in Belgium. And I really loved the time in Limburg, but I thought it was time for me to make the next step, and eventually I choose
Why?
Antwerp.
Yeah. Why did Antwerp came out of top? Out of top.
It was a really hard decision because all three of them were good teams, and I went to visit all of them. I talked to Coach Georgia, I talked to Hull, and I talked to the time to Fulvio, I think Fulvio
Mhm.
Bastianini was coach in Charleroi, and I talked to the GM. And it wasn't financially because they were basically the same, but it was more like where am I going to get the most playing time? Who believes in me a lot? And I think all coaches did, but eventually I chose Antwerp because I knew some guys there. Felt like Hull was really was going to give me a lot of minutes, and
Mm.
also I talked to Ismail Bako, who was still playing in Leuven at the time, and I texted him and I was like, yeah, let's go play in Antwerp together because I knew they already called him before, and eventually we decided to go to Antwerp the year after.
Because you were already teammates in the national youth teams as well,
Yeah,
where you did pretty well. So
yeah,
it made sense that you get together with him to Antwerp.
yeah,
But
yeah, exactly.
did you
And
think
Malcolm
that
Bennett, yeah,
like Georgia would give you more? Like you already knew the reputation of Georgia and Ostende, like they would create this machine that creates good players that already go out of Belgium to abroad. Didn't you think that that would be better choice then for later, maybe?
yeah, maybe because also another thing was that Ostend was always in a high. So they were
Yeah,
a lot of times they won the championship and they played Champions League or at that time a high European competition. So that was something else. Antwerp wasn't doing that great before we came here. They were, like I said, the year before we beat them with Limburg quarterfinals. They were
yeah,
like fourth, fifth spot. They played FIBA Eurocup, so it wasn't bad. But Austin was probably on a higher level for
mhm,
sure back then. But I felt like maybe in Antwerp, it was also together with Ismail, we could create something to make Antwerp or try to make
better.
Antwerp a team
Yeah,
as Ostend, and maybe we got some more freedom there because in Ostend there were a lot of good players already.
yeah, yeah.
So if we both went there, it would have been maybe a little bit too crowded or like too
Mhm.
much good players, for example. But
Well, your choice turned out pretty good, I guess. because you had some wonderful years with Antwerp. Um, but last year was not really your season, right? Your second season with Antwerp, you had some difficulties like getting your style of play, getting in the flow, let's say. What would you say is the reason? What do you think what happened there?
It's really hard to say. I mean, it's easier now, of course, because it's
Yeah.
behind us. But the first year, expected for me to make a really good season because in Limburg I was injured, didn't play a lot, and I had actually a really good year. Of course, we lost in the playoff finals, but for the rest, personally, I had a really good season. A big step up from where I came from Limburg, so I proved a lot of people that I was worthy
Hmm.
of playing in Antwerp, especially for my first year. So then at some point I was thinking that that was my gonna go to another league after the first year because I was still pretty young. There was some interest from teams.
Oh, really? Okay.
At some point I got like an offer, but it never went through, and I had 2 more years in Antwerp. So we decided like let's stay 2 more years and see what happens after that. Um, and then the second year we signed a lot of new players, a lot of good players, and I don't. I think I got hurt like the first month. I was hurt a little bit, and we signed Jay Sean Tate, who was also playing a
Hmm.
little bit in my position, but who was a really good player. We signed Victor Sanders and some other guys. So we had a really good team of really balanced team of foreigners or of Americans and Belgian players. So at some point, like I said, I wasn't really finding the flow, and other guys were playing really well. So my
Hmm.
minutes went down a little bit, and it kept going, and I was struggling a little bit with confidence because Coach Roel was really trying to help me out in the beginning, finding that
Hmm.
confidence back. But because other guys were doing well, we were winning games. It was not easy to fit me in the system
Yeah.
again, and it took pretty long. And then towards the end of the year, it got better. I played some good games in the Champions League and in the Belgian league, so it got a little bit better. But overall, it was definitely
A
maybe I
challenge.
lost some of the freedom in my game, and there was more good players maybe,
Yeah.
or it was a different style of play with a lot of pick and roll, which I had to adapt to a little bit, and I had the ball a little bit less, so my confidence dropped, and everything went down with that. So
Yeah.
it was basically a really tough season for me the second year.
Yeah. And how did you try to manage that feeling, like that frustration, without showing it too much? Of course,
Yeah,
people see, of course, that that's not you on the field, of course, but
yeah.
for yourself to be or to try to keep it together and just to try to get through it. What did you do?
Yeah, because in the beginning I was really trying everything to do it, but because it stayed and it only got worse, let's
Mm.
say I only played less minutes and even lost more confidence towards like January, February. It was really hard for me to not show my frustration, and sometimes maybe I did, and people noticed, and
Mm.
it's for sure not a good reaction, but it was pretty disappointing for me because I had a really good season the first year, and then dropping that low in the second year it was pretty tough for me because a lot of people expected some big time stuff from me the second year, and I didn't really deliver. So it was really frustrating, and at the time it was really hard for me to cope with. And I think people saw also that I had some not really. I had some arguments sometimes with the coach at the end of the season. But it was also a lot of times my fault because I wasn't really
You like,
playing that
yeah,
well. I lost confidence. It wasn't really his fault, and I try to blame it on him on the whole sometimes. But I don't think I was. I think it was completely my fault. So for me, thinking back after this season, I really basically needed a fresh start, and so at the end, I was just practicing as hard as possible at the second year, and I was trying to get better every day. And I had already in my mind like next year is going to be my season. And I'm gonna practice really hard in the off season and prove that I'm worth what people expect from me. And
and it
yeah,
wasn't something like you thought, oh, no, I'm gonna get out of here. This is not working, because you already knew that the coaching stuff would be changing, or was it already made up in your mind? No, let's keep it another year and I'll prove everybody that they're wrong.
Yeah, I think so because like everybody expected, a lot of people after we had an incredible season as a team, making the final four, playing the playoff finals again. I mean, we had a great team in Antwerp, so
Mhm.
I think a lot of people or everybody expected a lot of guys to leave the year after. So I had a 3-year deal. There was one more year, and like you said, I always had in my mind like, okay, this wasn't my year, but I know I can be a lot better. So if I work hard this summer and there might be some new players or a fresh start, and I come here ready in August, not injured, with a clear mind,
Mhm.
that is going to change. That is going to change a lot, and I know that I'm going to get chances to play, and I'm going to be able to prove myself again. So I already was thinking that in May the year before, so already knew.
And it turned out for good. I mean, you really had a good season this year. You were really doing good actually before this whole situation came about. Um, was it something that also instilled with the new coaching team? Is the style of play from Coach Began different than the one from Moors?
Um, I think there's really a lot of similarities because they already, of course, know each other really well from before. So I think even some plays and stuff we kept from the year before. What did change a lot was, like you said, the coaching staff completely changed, except for Chris becoming the head coach.
Yeah,
Also, a lot of players that change, which is also a completely different team. But one thing that is different, I think that Rule likes a lot of more pick and roll game with the one
mm,
and the five, and that Christophe this year, because he also was a five player during his career, he liked to post up a lot,
yeah,
and I really got a lot of uh, balls inside or feet inside.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I think that also helped me grow confidence. And the most important thing was that before the season started, he said that he really believed in me and that he was going to need me this year. And I started really strong in the preseason, and that's what gave me confidence. And I knew in the preseason, like I was gonna make a great season. I already knew in September that it was gonna be better
Yeah.
than the season before.
So the fact that you got that leadership role for a part really made you step up as well.
Yeah, it was
It's
similar to
something you
the
need.
yeah it was similar to the first year where I also even in my first year that we had a really young team, so I had a pretty big role. Um, had a pretty big role. And then the second year, there was a lot of new players, and I wasn't really playing that well. So the third year, I got that leadership role back again, and it really gave me confidence too. And then it helped a lot of guys seeing that I was doing well, and they got confidence out of that too. So I think that was good for the team also.
So it's actually a pity that the season had to end like this,
Yeah,
because you
yeah.
were the contenders for a stand together with Bergen, with Mons. What do you think? What did you think here when the season was really ended? And they said it's done for this year, and Oostenders is the winner, Oostenders is champion. You guys were third, so not even Champions League next year. What did you think? What went through your head?
Um, yeah, I mean, I was really happy at first that we played the cup and that we won the cup because if it was
Mhm.
2 weeks earlier, we wouldn't have been able to
Yeah.
win the cup. So, I mean, we worked the whole year. We played quarterfinals, semifinals to make it to that one game.
Hmm.
So at least I was really happy that we won that and we ended the season basically on a good note, on a win. Everybody was really happy 2 years in a row that we won the cup. But of course, like you said, it ended like 2 weeks later or even a week later, and felt like we got a lot of confidence out of that win, that cup win.
Hmm.
So I felt like we had, even though Champions League we didn't do really well, I think we had a good chance to making it again to the playoff finals. I think
Hmm.
we were really one of the favorites again this year, and everybody was really confident. So I think they made the right decision to cancel the league. But yeah, of course, I rather had played the playoffs because I think we were all confident and playing really well, better and better.
Yeah. You think you really had a shot at the title this year?
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, we won the cup. It's not the same. It's just one game. Playoffs is completely different.
Mhm.
There's a lot of more teams in the picture. But I think we had a lot of injuries during the year, and we were finally with a full squad in the cup final. Victor Sanders was playing again at his level from the year before. We had Branch, who came in during the season, who was defensively helped us out really a lot. So we had no more injuries. So I think with a full roster, we would have been able to definitely reach into the final, maybe even win it. Of course, you never know, but I think definitely we had a chance, especially with some teams like Ostend. They lost Angola right before the season ended, so I think that's also was a pretty big blow for them because I was one of their better players. Even Thompson was hurt, so I think everything was open. Mons had a good team, but still, 5-game series or a 3-game series
Mhm.
is not the same.
Yeah, it's a completely different competition right then, huh? With the playoffs. Um, not being the third now and not even Champions League. What does the future bring for Antwerp, but more specifically for you? If there's no Champions League and you have some
Yeah,
expectations from the season, maybe you even won
yeah,
the competition. Now that's
yeah.
all gone. So the future is just basically the same as it was this year. Um, what do you think? Is this enough for you, or do you really want to make that next step again?
Yeah, so I think for Antwerp first, I think it's really bad or too bad that they finished third because I've really felt like we deserved the spot at least in the qualifiers for the Champions League. So
Mhm.
I hope that they still can get that because I think Antwerp is a team that always needs to play Champions League or at least be able to make it to the Champions League.
Mhm.
So I think they still have to wait for that for the next couple of weeks that the Champions League is going to decide something. For me personally, like I already told the club, I was, of course, with the special situation now, it's not easy for anybody.
Mhm.
But I decided after 3 years in Antwerp, my contract ended. I decided to not extend the contract and look for a next challenge in another league um, to check if I'm ready for to play at that level in a higher competition, preferably European competition also. So yeah, I decided to not extend with Antwerp.
And are you not like, it's a challenge for sure, of course, if you go abroad to a bigger competition, one with a higher level? Are you not like a little bit afraid that now that you will not get the responsibility anymore that you had in Antwerp, that you will get back into that same bad spot as before this year?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's always a possibility, but that's a good point that you're making because if I'm going to sign somewhere, it's going to be really important for me that it's not going to be great financially, or it
Mhm.
has to be good financially, but that's not the only thing
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
thinking about because, like you said, if you have a season like I had the second year in Antwerp, it's terrible, and you're only thinking about just trying to play,
yeah.
not thinking about the rest. So for me, it's really important to preferably play in a good league, but also have
Playing time.
a starting role or at least coming off the bench as a sixth or seventh guy. So of course you gotta prove that first in that team, but you can always already tell a lot of times when a club or a coach contacts you if they believe in you and if they see you as a starter or how they see you in their team. And I think that's even more important for me at this moment. Yeah.
And do you have your preferences like in the sense of a competition or a country?
For me, it was just important to play in a good league, so that it has to be like, of course, you have the main leagues like Germany,
Yeah.
France, Spain, Italy. That's probably the four best leagues, and you have also Turkey and then Russia. But I always, people always say that Spain is the best league,
Hmm.
basketball wise, with a lot of really good teams. But I think also now you have to keep in mind what is going on
Yeah.
with the crisis and everything, that Spain and Italy might be hit the hardest in Europe because they're really having a lot of
Hmm.
problems, not only basketball wise, but just with the people over there in the hospitals and everything. So I think that's also going to reflect on basketball and other sports for sure in those countries that
Hmm.
they might have some more problems next year or the year after. So I definitely think that I have to keep that in mind.
But
Um,
for Spain,
might
it shouldn't be that big of a problem because they're already talking about opening the first division in Spain already, even for this season, to end the
Yeah,
season.
yeah, and I
So,
honestly don't think that's going to happen this year. But of course, they're really trying to do that. Even in
yeah.
Germany, I think they're still trying to finish the season. And I don't think that's a great idea to do. I mean, especially right now, maybe in August or September.
Mm.
But of course, it's their choice. But I think if I can find a good team in France or Germany, it would also be a really nice step up to play in one of those teams in also really good competitions.
But you haven't found one yet.
No, but
You sure?
no, but my manager has been talking to some teams,
Yeah.
and I honestly think or hope that it will be more clear in the next couple of days or weeks for sure.
Mm.
Hopefully.
And in the meantime, you can always go outside a little bit just to train with the kids, right?
Yeah, yeah, we
Yeah.
can
You have
make the
that.
best out of it. Make the best out of it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And doing that, like you have your own training camps in the summer as well.
Yeah,
You put a lot of effort into those things, right?
yeah, yeah,
To really brand yourself, if I may say,
yeah.
as a player. Is that an important aspect, you think, for any player to have?
Yeah, I think so. You see, some players are really not busy with that. I remember Ismail when he was in Antwerp. He wasn't really. He was just busy with playing basketball, which is of
Yeah.
course the most important thing. But he had his own hobbies off the court, but he wasn't really busy with camps or anything after that. He was just taking it year by year. But I was already thinking about the camps even when I was in Limburg. And then last year or 2 years ago, I really started to work it out also with my dad, and we hosted a couple of camps in Antwerp, in Limburg already, some practices together with the Giants, which were like an incredible success. Even on Sundays, we would host practices for kids, and there would be like 70, 80 kids at every practice. So it was like a big success,
Yeah.
and I was already busy with it because maybe after my career, because it's not easy to do it now. You can do it a little bit during the season, but there's so much games, so much practices that you can do it in the off season. But for the rest, it's almost there's almost no time. Maybe even next year is going to be even harder to do it. So, but I always thought it was for me personally really important to think about the future already and just not next year, but also the years after. And if you want to do it after your career, I feel like you already got to start it right now and make it grow a little bit, and so people know your name and know that your cams are good and that you're having the best coaches and all that stuff around. Um,
So you already do it with the idea that later on, after your career, you have something that you can build upon.
yeah, yeah, maybe not as the main thing, but
Yeah.
like it will be worked out way better, let's say in 5 or 6
Mm.
years than it is right now. Then if you start with it in 6 years, you're not sure how it's going to work out. And now I already learned a lot of stuff in those past two
Yeah.
years with organization, um, getting kids to come to your camps and work those camps out and then get coaches. I've learned really a lot in those 2 years, so I know it's going to only grow hopefully the next
Mhm.
couple of years.
Mhm. And do you feel like it's an important part as well, just to build that brand for yourself as a player? Does it help you as well with any negotiations with other brands or even with clubs or with teams that you can already or that they already know you maybe?
Yeah. I think it definitely helps with brands. Of course, almost every player now at a pretty high level has an agent, so he takes care of most of that
Yeah.
stuff. Social media is so important these days. Also, only if I see at the camps where I get to the kids, mostly through Facebook and
Yeah.
Instagram, and I use it a lot for the camps. But I also see other players using it, like you say, for different brands, getting maybe sometimes even
Hmm.
sponsorships with the teams, but that they have to post pictures on social media. So I think social media has really a big influence on even professional players these days. But I would say that for signing a contract, it doesn't really help. It
No.
doesn't matter if you have Instagram or not. But for your personal stuff, I think it definitely helps. And some guys are working on it a lot, like every day, and busy with it. But other guys don't even have Instagram. It's more like a personal choice. But I think you can have some advantages from it for
Yeah.
sure.
Especially in these days, because if you don't have an online presence right now,
Yeah,
nobody knows what you're doing. And like you already do with these children, it's amazing. You get that connection with these children. And I also think it's a good thing for Belgian basketball or the club where you play, because they already have somebody to look up to.
yeah.
So they can come to the games as well and they see you there as well. So I think it has a bigger impact than some of them
Yeah,
think.
I think so. I think Antwerp. When I came with the idea, I worked together with Jan, who is the CEO of Sportpaleis. So
Hmm.
he was also like the owner of the gym,
Yeah.
and he really liked it a lot because the club Antwerp Giants, of course, liked it a lot because there was always 60, 70 kids coming to their
Yeah.
practice facility. And because I played in the first team, I got a lot of other players from like even Americans and Ismail and Dennis and other Belgian players to come to the practices and be a coach. And I think that's pretty unique because if you go to a regular camp, you have really good coaches, of course,
Hmm.
but they're coaches in their clubs already, so they know them already, or
Yeah,
they're
exactly. Yeah.
first division. But having so much players, first division players, or really good players
Mhm.
in a camp is really something special. And I think the club really liked it a lot that we were doing that, and they also saw the advantages from that for bringing young, talented players to the club,
Exactly. Yeah.
maybe even bringing them to their U teams after that, and bringing people to the gym and everything. So it's really I think a plus for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, not only for Antwerp, but in general, like Belgian basketball, you also play now for the Belgian Lions, right?
Yeah.
How is that for you? What do you think? What is
Uh,
the level of play in the team, and do you think they can reach the same level as they did a couple of years ago?
yeah, I really think that we have a really talented um, generation coming up. For me, I missed out a lot of games actually for the
Mhm.
national team. So I missed the European Championship, and I played a lot of other games, but I always got injured at bad moments. Even this year again, I had to miss the window in February, I think, because I was injured. So
Mhm.
a lot of times I would have really liked to be there, but I got injured. But I think if everybody's healthy and we can bring anybody together during the season or during the off season, that we can have a really good team and that we definitely can make it to like European Championship and maybe even get a put down a good result because I think we have the players to do it. Also, with some still being in
Mhm.
Valencia now, Ismail in EuroLeague, we have some EuroLeague players and some other players who play in Spain, France. So I think if we get all those guys together and some other Belgian players, that we can definitely be a great team and we have a lot of talent.
Yeah, there is a new generation actually coming up in the with the Belgian Lions. A lot of young guys. Is that also due to the way that the league is designed? Like also next year there will be even more youngsters coming onto the scene. Does that help for the national team?
Yeah, I think so. I think so, of course. And then also the youth national teams is also I think really important because with a lot of guys I already played in the summer and we had some great
Mhm.
teams in the past. So I think maybe it's even sometimes better to put them together even more. I know
Yeah.
it's really hard during the season, but that's we had the '95 generation, born in 1995. We had a
Mhm.
really good generation, and we had a lot of good players. And if you see right now, they're all playing, or a lot of them are playing abroad or in better competitions and also giving guys the chance like me to play from a young age in first division in Belgium also helps a lot to get the experience. And then hopefully one day they can go to a better league even and even be on the Belgian Lions. So I think that's definitely a plus. Yeah.
Do you think that the Belgian competition or the Belgian league is high enough in quality to produce those kind of players that can help the national team? Or do you think they can start, of course, in Belgium, but they have to go abroad to really step it up and then create that level of play that we need for the Belgian team as well.
Yeah, I think honestly, like everybody knows, like let's say 5 or 8 years ago, the league in the Belgian league was definitely a higher level. I think
Mhm.
there's no doubt about that that you can see. Um, Only good thing about it is that Belgian players get a lot of more chances, which
Yeah,
is also really important to me, I think. But I feel like that if you're doing really well, that you should try to go to a better league to keep evolving because at some point you reach like a platform and then
mhm.
you have to make the you have to make the next step. And what I mean with the next step is you shouldn't leave Belgium immediately. First, you got to prove that you're
Good
good
enough.
enough or that you're even dominating the Belgian league,
Mhm.
and then you should make that step. So I'm not saying that you should go play in, for example, in Romania or something. I really feel like we talked about before, there has to be a
A
better
good
league.
competition. Yeah, yeah.
And first you got to be a role player, not just a role player, but really a good player
Mhm.
on one of the better teams in Belgium. And I
Mhm.
still feel like we don't see that enough these days because there's Belgian players getting minutes for sure, but most of the time they're like role players. They get their minutes, but the
And
foreigners have to create a lot of stuff, and they don't get as much as responsibility, and that's where I feel like
do
that's
you
where
think
your
that's
great
because
players
of the teams, or do you think that's because of the just the level of the player itself? That the player itself himself is just not good enough, or is it the teams that are scared to put those players on the court?
I think it's a little bit of both because sometimes some players maybe aren't good enough to get those responsibilities, and they're just role players, and I understand that. But sometimes you see young guys who are maybe still a little bit too young, but you know that they're in 3 4 years they're going to be able to be big players in the league if they keep improving. So sometimes I feel like that they maybe should give those players a little bit more confidence already from a younger age. Of course, you don't have to play them 20 25 minutes, but I feel like you have to give them, like I always got the chance in Limburg, which maybe wasn't
Yeah.
top two or top three team back then, but I always got, even before I proved anything, I always got a lot of confidence, and I started to grow confidence because I got playing time from
Mhm.
sitting on that bench till you're 24, 25. You're not gonna, from just practicing, you're not gonna get a lot of confidence. So you need to put them out there. Of course, when they're not playing well, you don't have to keep playing them, but I think they deserve at least maybe sometimes a little bit more chances
Mhm.
to prove themselves, especially in the Belgian league. Maybe Champions League is still a different level. I understand that, but
Mhm.
the other teams who only play Belgian league or play Belgian league, I feel like some young guys are ready to play like 5 10 minutes a game for sure. Yeah,
Because we have some examples, I think, that prove that statement that it doesn't like if they stay on the bench for too long, it's not good for them, right?
yeah, yeah,
And what they do most of the times is they go back to second division and they play top. They are one of the best players. If you look at Louis Hazard, he was the best player in second division. Now he's back at first division, right?
yeah,
So it means that the player is good enough
yeah, mhm,
and he should get more chances in first division.
yeah,
And this is the same case for a lot of guys, I think. But indeed, putting them on the bench for that long of a time won't help anybody,
yeah,
won't
yeah.
help Belgian competition as well. And do you think that with going together with the Netherlands, will have more influx of young players that get the chances, or will it just be more teams with the same kind of way of playing and will not even be positive result at the end of the competition for anybody?
Yeah, I think. I mean, it's really hard to say right now because I feel like Belgium has to do something, especially now with the crisis and everything. I think it's going to be really tough for some teams already this year. So I feel like they had to do something, and maybe going together with the Netherlands, it's gonna give the league a boost.
Hmm.
Also, maybe some new sponsors, some teams who are financially better, and then can sign some good Belgians or some good Dutch guys. But I feel like sometimes teams are, yeah, they're really, they of course they want to get results, and they're looking at like 1 or 2 year, and they're not really looking at the long run. Of
Long
course,
term.
some teams are doing that, but that's why they also are not playing those young guys immediately. They really have to prove themselves in second division, which I completely agree on. But then sometimes you should give them a little bit of a taste of that first division already when they're like 18, maybe, or
Yeah.
19, 20 years old for sure. And I hope that that's going to happen when the Binnen League is gonna be there in like 2 years or something. I hope that's going to give a boost to
To
those young
everyone.
players, but I'm not sure. I hope teams are going to change their way of thinking a little bit, and that means that
Because they
Belgium.
should already have an idea how they should do it if they just look at Ostende. I mean, you can say what you want, but in Ostende, they always manage to create stars from young players. Kay van der Vorst, he was just a young player when he came to Ostende, and now he's one of the best point guards there with playing minutes. So why is it so difficult for other teams, clubs, to see that this is a model that can work?
Yeah, yeah. I know. I mean, it's also because, of course, it helps when you're a nine-time champion. You're
Sure.
working with the same coach for 10 years. A lot of teams already changed coach like 5 times, and they don't really.
Mhm.
I mean, they try to, but it doesn't work out, and they have to change coach and change players every 2 years. In Austin, which you see a lot of times, is they sign guys when to the school back in the day, and they're 16, 17 years old. They practice with the first team. They learn a lot, and
Mhm.
they sometimes even get minutes in the first team. And what the thing is in Ostend, they had a pretty good budget, but they also always had a good mix of good Belgian guys and good foreigners. So
Mhm.
even the young Belgian guys would learn a lot from those foreigners and from Dario, of course, because he's a really good coach, and he would make those guys better. I remember hearing from guys that he would work him personally. He would work out a lot of
Mhm.
those guys, and he would practice with them like before practice, after practice, in the morning. So he would be working with them constantly, and the next 2 3 years you would get the results. You would see guys like Bukishu,
Mhm.
Serran, Salomou all started there and who became great players, and we even saw them even went outside of Belgium, and they all started in Ostend. So the model is working, but you need to have the right setup, to have great
Mhm.
facilities and everything like that. So there's not a lot of teams who can do the same thing.
Is that something like that way of working? Is that something you look at as well when you go to a new team? Now you have to decide which team you want to pick now outside of Belgium. Is the organization something you look at, or is it mainly will I get my minutes?
I think, of course, the organization has to be good. Like a professional organization is
Mhm.
always important with a lot of stuff to help you. But I think it's pretty basic. But it comes down to a lot of times to who's the coach
Mhm.
and how does he play? How does he work? Does he work with young guys? Does he believe in you? I think that's really important because, of course, they can never promise you anything. Because you can sign somewhere and the coach can say,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm going to start you, I'm going to play you, but you have to prove it yourself, and you can never
yeah.
promise something like that. But I think also from seeing a club like Ostend or Antwerp, who works with a lot of young guys, you see that it's the same thing is coming back. So I think you definitely have to look at that, and which also helps a lot is those teams that I mentioned, and then also Charleroi, Mons. They have their own facilities,
Yeah.
which helps out a lot. You can basically always practice because they have their own gym. Especially this year in Antwerp, it's really important. They built their own practice facility. You have a fitness and 3 courts, a shooting machine. So even just to work out is a lot easier than in some teams who only have the gym from this hour to this hour, and it's not always available. I think that helps a lot with young teams. Also having a team that is in second or third division to play your youngsters, it's so important for them to get experiences. So that is also, I think, if you sign with one of those teams, one of the keys why you want to go there.
Okay. Great. Great. Um, One last try. What would be your top three teams to go to right now?
Uh, in Europe, you mean?
Well, I mean, you can pick one in the NBA, but I'm not sure if that's something you. are looking at right now?
Yeah,
Maybe later, I don't know.
I don't think so either. No, that's really tough. I would say that I
You have
always,
a preference.
yeah, I always, when I was like playing in Limburg, I always liked the German league to play in a German team. Also, when we played Antwerp, we played German teams. I always had good games because I think I liked their way of playing. It was really physical, a lot of inside game, really solid, skilled players. But then, if you see a lot of Belgian players who come out of Belgium, trying to leave Belgium, they go to France or even
Hmm.
Spain sometimes when they're a bit lucky. So I
Hmm.
think that's maybe easier to adapt a little bit. Um, to
So
really
maybe
to really put
we'll
names on there, it's tough. But those leagues are definitely highly favored for me.
so and then maybe we'll see you with Moors again.
No, yeah, never know. You
I
never
can
know.
try.
I
I
have
can try.
a good relationship with Rule, of course, because I mean, some
Yeah,
people thought that we did it. We had some problems the second season, but I texted him,
I
I
was
called
one of
him
them too.
today, so
Yeah,
we
yeah.
still have a relationship.
But that's also always a coach-player thing when you're on the court. I mean, who
Exactly,
hasn't had
exactly.
any
Yeah,
words with his coach, in his career? So yeah.
exactly. So after that, it was all good. So
Okay, well, I want to thank you, Hans, for your time. It was nice talking to you. I wish you all the best. And if you know where you're going, let us know so we
yeah,
can make an article on our new site.
all right.
Thank you very much, man. Talk
Thanks
to
for
you
having
later.
me. Okay,
Bye.
thanks. Bye.